If you were slapped and publicly humiliated in the very bank you own, would you stay silent or bring down the entire system? The sharp sound of a slap shattered the quiet air of the marble-tiled lobby at Monarch Bank. Heads turned. Customers froze mid-transaction. Some lifted their phones to record. Others stood motionless in shock. "I've called the police. We don't serve people like you here." Logan Trent's voice, the customer service manager, echoed through the high, domed ceiling, each word landing like a hammer on the dignity of the woman who had just been struck. Camilla Hartley did not retaliate. She stood still, her face turned slightly to the side, the red mark blooming across her deep brown skin like a quiet but powerful wound. No one knew that the woman standing there was not just a customer being dismissed, but the new owner of the very bank where she now stood. Under the white light of the LED fixtures above, the name tag Logan Trent, Customer Service Manager, gleamed on his chest. A cruel reminder that power, when held by the wrong person, becomes a weapon. Two security guards appeared, but instead of restraining Logan, they stepped in front of Camilla, speaking in flat tones like lines rehearsed. "Ma'am, you're disturbing the peace. You are under arrest." Camilla did not back away. She did not flinch or show fear. She simply adjusted the soft grey cardigan draped over her shoulders and said calmly, "I believe there's been a misunderstanding." Her voice was not loud or cold, but carried a strange weight, as though each word had been measured with a quiet confidence in the truth. In the murmuring crowd that had gathered, no one noticed the brand of her clothes or the label on her bag. No one recognized the woman who had graced the covers of major business magazines, or the one who had donated millions to universities, hospitals, and community programs. They only saw a black woman, plainly dressed, without a title, and concluded without hesitation that she did not belong here. What Logan Trent did not know, or more accurately could never have imagined, was that just 3 weeks ago, a discreet share acquisition had taken place. Camilla Hartley, founder and CEO of Hartley Capital, had quietly purchased the entire Monarch Bank system through a deal that would remain confidential until the end of the month. She did not need to come to the bank to be served. She came to observe, to listen, and to verify one thing: whether what happened to her great-grandmother 30 years ago, when she was denied a home loan at this very branch despite qualifying fully, was still happening today. She had told her executive team, "No financial report captures prejudice. No chart shows silent humiliation. Only by standing as a customer can I know the truth." Now that truth was no longer a theory. It was undeniable in the slap, in the sneers, in the indifference of bystanders who remained silent. But Camilla Hartley did not come here to be a victim. She came to witness and to transform. And this story was only just beginning. The night before she first stepped into Monarch Bank in disguise, Camilla Hartley sat quietly in the armchair by the window, the city lights reflecting through the glass onto the family photographs on the wall. On the table lay the acquisition documents, a thick stack of papers stamped and signed, proof that she was no longer an outsider to the financial system, but someone in control of it. Across from her sat her daughter, Tessa, 17 years old, bright-eyed and filled with a fierce sense of justice. She set down her iPad and said, "Mom? Today I reread great-grandma's old loan application. I still don't get it. She had a good credit score, stable income, a down payment lined up. Why did they reject her?" Camilla remained silent for a moment, her heart tightening as she saw her own reflection in her daughter's gaze. It was the same question she had carried throughout her childhood, watching her grandmother weep in their tiny kitchen, Each time, another rejection letter came. "They didn't reject her because of money," Camilla replied softly but firmly. "They rejected her because she was a black woman trying to buy a home in a white neighborhood." Tessa didn't ask anything further. Instead, she walked over, wrapped her arms tightly around her mother, and whispered, "Then this time, show them what justice looks like. Not just for great-grandma, but for everyone like her still being denied today." With those words imprinted on her heart, Camilla prepared not as a business mogul, but as an ordinary woman, a mother, a granddaughter, a voice for those who had never been heard. She carefully selected modest clothing, a simple white blouse, navy slacks, a slightly worn grey cardigan, and flats from a local store. Her hair was tied back, no makeup, no designer glasses, no Italian leather handbag, just a woman going to the bank to open an account. But tucked inside her old wallet was a different identity. Documents under the name Camilla Green, her great-grandmother's maiden name, supported by a meticulously crafted financial profile, bank statements, stable income, high credit score, a valid license as an independent business consultant, everything completely legal and more than sufficient for any basic banking transaction. This was not just an experiment. This was a quiet declaration of war. In boardroom meetings, Camilla had heard the doubts. Why not use mystery shoppers? Why risk your reputation? Why not send in trained actors? Her response was always steady. Because I don't want to read about injustice. I want to feel it. I want to look into the eyes of those who inflict it, and I want them to look back and see who they truly are. With that resolve, she walked into Monarch Bank the next morning as someone no one would recognize. But that was exactly the point. Invisibility was the only key to seeing the true nature of a system. And through the power of timely silence, Camilla would make the entire bank listen to her. Not with titles, but with truth. At exactly 10:17 a.m., Camilla Hartley pushed open the door to the Monarch Bank branch on Rose Lane Avenue. A branch once named the top performer in the region, but also the very one that had rejected her great-grandmother 3 decades earlier. The space inside looked like any major financial institution. High ceilings, soft white lighting, walnut teller counters polished to perfection, and greenery placed so precisely it seemed even the leaves followed a design manual. Every detail declared one thing. This was a place for those deemed worthy. Camilla stepped into the queue, neither standing out nor appearing out of place. Simply a middle-aged woman dressed modestly, patiently waiting her turn. Ahead of her, a white man in a grey suit was personally invited by a banker to a private consultation room. An elderly couple inquiring about savings accounts were warmly escorted by 2 staff members into a side meeting room with wide smiles and open gestures. When it was Camilla's turn, she approached the counter where Marcus Bell, a young associate in a crisp white shirt with his tie knotted exactly as outlined in training, looked at her with a moment of hesitation. His eyes scanned her from head to toe, as if measuring suitability. "Good morning. I just moved to the area," Camilla said, calm and cordial. "I'd like to open a personal account and explore some investment options." She handed over her documents, all complete and in perfect order. But instead of the welcoming smile he had shown others, Marcus flipped her ID back and forth, then cast a quick glance toward the corner of the room where Logan Trent was seated. A barely perceptible nod from Logan prompted Marcus to respond in kind, before sliding a generic pamphlet across the counter toward Camilla. "You can find more information on our website," Marcus said, his voice noticeably quieter. or you could use the ATM kiosk outside to set up an account automatically. It's more convenient." It wasn't advice. It was a dismissal. But Camilla didn't react. She offered a polite smile. "I'd prefer to speak directly with someone about the investment plans. I have a few specific questions." Marcus stiffened, uncertain how to proceed. He picked up the phone and whispered, "I have a customer." "Yes, she wants to speak to an advisor." "No, she doesn't have an appointment." "Yes, I understand." Then turned to Camilla. "I'm afraid our advisors are all occupied today. If you don't mind, you could leave your contact information and we'll follow up later." As he spoke, he avoided making eye contact. Just then, the front door opened again, and a white woman in business attire stepped inside. At a glance, Logan rose from his desk and walked over with a wide smile and a warm voice. "Good morning. Looking to open an account? I'll assist you personally." Camilla watched it unfold, a mirrored process in reverse, as if courtesy was a commodity distributed by criteria. She turned back and said gently to Marcus, "I'm happy to schedule an appointment if today isn't convenient." But when Logan returned, the message became even clearer. He approached, eyes carrying an outspoken judgment. "We have certain procedures for new clients," he said. "You can begin with a basic account through our digital platform. My staff is quite busy today." Camilla maintained her steady tone. "I'd like to speak with someone directly. I've brought all the necessary documents." Logan examined her ID under the light with excessive scrutiny, then said coldly, "We'll need tax forms and proof of business registration to open an account for someone self-employed like yourself." A requirement that had not been mentioned earlier. Yet Camilla was unfazed. She offered a courteous smile. "Understood. I'll return with everything you've requested." Then she turned to leave, but not to give up. She would be back, stronger, because what she needed wasn't just a bank account. What she needed was the truth, and now it was starting to reveal itself. The next morning, Camilla returned to the Monarch branch, carrying a simple black leather bag, holding a perfectly prepared file. Business license, 3 months of statements from her previous bank, tax reports, an investment portfolio summary, and a pristine credit report. There was not a single reason that could justify denial. She dressed exactly as she had the day before, but this time her presence carried a quiet yet resolute gravity. She was no longer there to observe. She was there to confront. As she entered the lobby, she spotted Marcus behind the counter. A flicker of unease crossed his face when he recognized her. His eyes barely met hers before darting away, as if direct contact might force him to acknowledge something that could no longer be ignored. In the far corner, Logan Trent was chatting with a male customer in a polo shirt and khakis, casual and carefree, his laughter echoing after some presumably personal comment from Logan. Without waiting, Camilla walked to the reception desk and said gently, "I have an appointment this morning to discuss savings and asset management." She knew she was lying, but sometimes a strategic untruth is the key to revealing a much greater truth. The receptionist checked the schedule and hesitated, seeing no name listed, but faced with Camilla's confident demeanor and the neatly placed file on the counter, she nodded and made a call inside. Behind the desk, Philip Crane, the branch manager, appeared. He had the air of a man well trained in the art of listening, smiling, and avoiding conflict. As he approached, his tone was professionally courteous. "I understand there's been a slight mix-up with the appointment." Before Camilla could answer, Logan cut in from behind with a voice that already sounded victorious. "This is the client I mentioned yesterday, the one we advised to return with the necessary documents." Philip glanced quickly at Logan, then at Camilla. The shift in his expression was subtle, but unmistakable the moment he realized that client was a woman of color, not fitting the typical image of an executive. "I see. May I review your documentation?" Camilla placed the file on the desk and opened it item by item, prepared so thoroughly that no excuse could stand. Philip and Logan looked over each page, their eyes betraying a flicker of unease as they struggled to find grounds for delay. "I'll have Doris Lang, our senior financial advisor, assist you," Philip said, already glancing toward an older employee seated in the back corner. Doris Lang, near 60, glasses perched on her nose, beige suit, and a composed demeanor, approached, holding a thin set of brochures. Without a warm greeting, she pulled out a chair and began in a dry tone. "We offer basic savings accounts for entry-level clients. Asset management accounts require a minimum of $250,000. You may want to consider a more modest option." Camilla didn't respond immediately. Instead, she opened her wallet and produced a certified summary of her investment portfolio. "I currently have over $500,000 invested primarily in tech stocks and municipal bonds. I'm looking for a long-term allocation strategy." Doris hesitated for a second, then resumed her composed posture. "Of course, we'll need to verify that information. The authentication process is often quite involved." Camilla smiled, her gaze fixed on Doris. "I understand. But I noticed the couple at the next table were offered investment guidance without immediate asset verification. They arrived after I did." Doris went quiet for a moment, then began taking notes. Logan returned, casually standing near their table. But Camilla knew he was monitoring the exchange. When she asked about the additional documentation, Doris's answer was vague. Camilla replied, "I'm simply trying to understand the difference between a standard requirement and a selectively applied one." That statement thickened the air around them. Logan turned with a strained voice. "If you feel this process isn't suitable, perhaps the community bank on the east side would be a better fit." For the second time in 2 days, she was subtly told to leave. But Camilla did not budge. She stood up, locked eyes with Logan, her gaze no longer soft, but as cold and precise as a blade across stone. "Thank you for the suggestion, but I'll stay. Because sometimes the place least willing to accept you is the one most in need of change." That Tuesday morning, Camilla Hartley walked through the glass doors of Monarch Bank, with a presence no longer quiet like the 2 days before. She still wore the same neutral sweater and had her hair neatly tied back, but this time she carried a perfect preparation for the final confrontation. In her hands was the business portfolio of Hartley Advisory, a fictitious financial consulting firm she had built for this test, including a detailed expansion plan and a loan request to fund a new branch. There was nothing questionable about her qualifications as a client, but what she aimed to expose was not her financial viability, but the limits of a system forced to confront the very bias it tried so hard to conceal. The receptionist greeted her with a strained smile, though knew it was clear she had heard the whispers circling inside the branch. Camilla took a seat in the waiting area, hands placed neatly over her leather briefcase, eyes calmly tracking every movement in the lobby. The sideways glances, the quick looks followed by immediate avoidance, as if she were an unwanted element disrupting the carefully constructed order of the place. Logan Trent emerged from the corner of the room, his gaze skimming before freezing when he saw her. He said nothing, but his entire posture tightened like a bowstring pulled too far. Soon after, Doris Lang appeared holding a thin folder. "We have some basic information about small business loans," she said curtly, not sitting down, simply placing the materials in Camilla's hand, as if eager to end the meeting as fast as possible. "I was hoping for a more in-depth discussion," Camilla replied, opening her briefcase and pulling out her business plan. "I have financial projections and cash flow analyses for the next 2 years." Doris hesitated, her eyes flicking toward Logan, who was pretending to be busy in the background. "Our loan specialist is currently in a meeting," she said, stepping back. But Camilla didn't let her retreat so easily. "I can wait. Or if Mr. Walsh, the branch manager, is available, that would be even better." That name sliced through the air like a blade. Bryson Walsh, the man long seen as the pillar of this branch, stepped out of his office with a slightly furrowed brow. He was the kind of leader who appeared only when things spiraled out of control, always maintaining a safe distance from the truth. But today, the truth had walked through the door and was sitting in his lobby in silence. He approached and shook Camilla's hand with professional politeness, but his eyes betrayed cautious skepticism. "I understand you have some concerns," he said, and before Camilla could respond, Logan inserted himself with a tone steeped in superiority. "This is the client I mentioned earlier. She's been bypassing protocol and giving staff a hard time." Camilla stood, not angry, but her gaze sliced clean through the polished veneer of false professionalism. "I've come here 3 days in a row. Each time I brought complete documentation, waited patiently, and was denied access to services others received instantly, simply because I don't look like them." Logan opened his mouth to interject, but Camilla continued, her voice calm but unmistakably firm. "I'm not here to request privilege. I'm here to verify a suspicion. And this morning, I overheard you say people like me should know their place. That comment didn't just insult me. It insulted every person this bank has quietly excluded over the years." A long silence followed. Customers began to turn and look. Some pulled out their phones. Logan stepped closer, no longer masking his hostility. "If you keep causing a scene, I will call security." Camilla did not flinch. "Please do. Let them witness this. And let them answer the question. Why is a qualified client seen as a threat, while the one showing bias is the one being protected?" In that moment, Logan raised his hand. Another slap. Harder, louder, and more brutal than any before. The room fell completely silent, but no one turned away. Phones were now pointed directly at him, and in Camilla's eyes, a spark ignited, not one of pain, but of something just beginning. The sharp sound of an unexpected slap echoed through the grand lobby of Monarch Bank. But Camilla Hartley stood firm, unwavering. Her hand gently touched her cheek, still burning with the imprint of that strike. Yet her eyes never left the face of Logan Trent, the man who had just revealed the true nature of someone who believed himself untouchable. A second later, footsteps rang out from the main entrance, deliberate, steady, powerful. 3 people entered, dressed in refined business attire, walking with unwavering intent. Leading them was a young woman named Malia James, legal counsel for Hartley Holdings, followed by Marcus Wynn, head of compliance, and a security systems engineer with equipment already linked to the internal server network. Their presence cut like a blade through the arrogant display of the past 3 days. They didn't glance at reception, didn't wait to be invited. They walked directly to Camilla and bowed in unison. "We are here under direct instruction from Mrs. Hartley," Malia announced, loud enough for the entire room to hear. In that stunned silence, the truth began to ripple through the room like a wave. This woman of color, denied service, ordered to leave, slapped in full view of clients and staff, was in fact the new owner of Monarch Financial. Logan's eyes widened. He stepped back, then again, as Camilla pulled a folder from her leather bag, containing the full documentation confirming that Hartley Holdings had acquired Monarch through its parent company 3 weeks prior. "I don't need to prove who I am," Camilla said, eyes fixed on branch manager Bryson Walsh, who had only appeared over the last few days to shield his subordinates. "But today, I will make sure everyone knows. We've quietly evaluated this branch in the only way that matters, by experiencing it as a regular client. And what did we find? Discrimination, excuses, violence." Malia James stepped forward and handed Logan and Walsh their temporary suspension notices, backed by security footage and viral clips taken by customers in the room. "Mrs. Hartley is not only the new CEO of this banking system," Marcus Wynne added with solemnity, "but she is also leading the full-scale reform initiative focused on ethics, procedure, and service culture. And the staff-wide meeting will begin in 30 minutes. Logan said nothing. He was escorted out of the lobby by the same security guards who just the day before had followed his orders to detain Camilla, now walking in silence under the eyes of every person present. Bryson Walsh awkwardly approached, attempting a professional smile, but Camilla gently cut him off before he could speak. "I don't need an apology. I need accountability. And you cannot represent the future this bank is now moving toward." Walsh was formally terminated moments later. A collective exhale swept through the lobby, not out of vengeance, but because for the first time, someone had the courage to end the silence that many had long endured. Camilla turned to address the remaining staff. "We're not here to tear down individuals. We're here to rebuild an entire culture. If any of you have ever stayed silent in the face of wrong, today is your second chance. We are rewriting the standard, and anyone who chooses to walk forward with us is invited." A staff meeting began. What followed were handshakes, quiet tears, and a line of clients waiting for assistance. This time, no one was judged by skin color or attire. 6 months later, Camilla stood in the very spot where 3 decades ago her great-grandmother had been denied a home loan. Now there was no thick glass counter, no judging stares. No more, "People like you don't qualify." Instead, a digital screen displayed fair interest rates, community investment programs, and faces that truly reflected the neighborhood they served. One act of disguise, 3 days of endurance, and the result was a system forced to change, not out of fear, but because someone dared to stare injustice in the face and call it by name. Camilla smiled, knowing that what she had done was more than a covert investigation. It was a real awakening. In a world where power is often measured by appearance and voice, the story of Camilla Hartley reminds us that real change does not come from punishment, but from the courage to confront a system that has long concealed injustice. She did not simply expose discrimination within a single bank branch. She laid out a clear roadmap to rebuild trust, justice, and a culture of service. If you believe that true strength lies in action, not in titles, then like this video, subscribe so you won't miss stories that transform systems from within, and leave a comment with the phrase, "Speak with courage," to help spread that spirit together.